I'm a big believer that there's nothing we can't accomplish if we're unified. But the problem is that we spend all our time talking about our divisions instead of what brings us together. And, you know, maybe it's because I come from such a mixed up background, right? I've said this before, when you get my family together, I mean, you've got people who look like Margaret Thatcher. You've got people who look like Bernie Mac. You've got, you know, my sister, she looks like Selma Hayek. I don't know if you've seen her. She looks Latin. I mean, and she's got a baby because she married a Chinese Canadian. So she's got I got a little niece who's a little Chinese baby. So the point is that, you know, that's just how I look at the world is we all have a piece of each other. And we can't get caught up in our differences. We can't get caught up in our differences. Now that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be some tension sometimes, right? I mean, look, and this is what I talked about in Philadelphia. The African American community has a history. You can't ignore that history. People are angry. Sometimes they say foolish stuff because they're angry, or sometimes they're bitter. And you don't have to, we can't agree with it, but we can acknowledge it. You know, people, you know, coming from Puerto Rico, they've experienced discrimination in certain circumstances. You can't just pretend that that doesn't exist. You've got to acknowledge it, but that doesn't mean that everything, that's going to hold us back from being able to work together. And, you know, and listen, when we're talking about white Americans, you know, we can't just pretend if we're African American or Latino that they don't have problems. They're losing their jobs too. They're paying $4 a gallon for gas too. Yeah. They're, you know, so sometimes minority groups, you know, forget that, well, look, everybody's having a tough time. Everybody's in this together. That's the kind of attitude that we've got to have in solving problems. That, you know, each person and each group may have its own particular issues, but most of the big issues, educating our kids, having a job that pays a living wage, making sure that we all have health care that we can afford, making sure our kids go to college, those are issues, you know, making sure that all our veterans are cared for when they come home, because when they're getting shot at in Iraq and Afghanistan, those bullets aren't saying, oh, that's the black bullet, this is the white bullet. That's the kind of attitude that we have to have if we're going to move this country forward.